off.
Oh, so it is. I thought it was nature sounds.
Yes. So, well, Alex, really good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Dhammarato.
You were talking about um, the issue of being on a group with new students or people who hadn't been in the Dhamma before, and looking for ways of talking about it so that it would land for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And the difficulty of like kind of trying to recreate a perspective that it was all silly to begin with, if that makes sense. Because you're
Hmm.
trying to look at it from a way of talking where you're like, hey, how can I help here? How can I be generous with my time and the information that I have? And how does that help us connect with a person?
Well, i- first off, let's talk about the word land. Okay. That it is quite possible that people do learn something very fast, but it's normally something in the sense of crash landing. Okay.
It's okay.
An example of that would be putting your hand in the fire and then recognizing that
Ouch.
it's hot. And from then on, we avoid getting burned.
Hmm.
Another one would be, and we do it almost automatically. We don't have to think about the fire being hot and that I should avoid it. We do that, it gets wired really deeply. Another example of that is how to hold a knife. Once you've cut yourself a couple of times,
Yeah.
you become
Start
more
to pay
careful.
attention, huh? Yes.
Uh-huh. And then what will happen is that you begin to cut on something really hard and you get frustrated, and then you'll cut yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're not watching. So this
Yes. Okay.
issue then we can take it now to another point, and that is that in the West, the way that Buddhism has traditionally been taught, and the Asian mentality, and all of the words of Buddhism coming from Pali and bad translations or whatever like that, um, it doesn't land.
Right.
It doesn't hit people,
Hmm.
and it doesn't strike them in that way. And so we kind of take a different approach to it. And that new approach is more like, how do you've seen, a hand towel that's been dried in the sun, or maybe the plastic sponges or whatever, that
Hmm.
when you drip water on them, or if you actually can immerse the cloth in water, you can take it and put it all the way in and then bring it out, and it's not completely wet all over.
Yeah.
You have to squeeze it and get the water to soak into it. All right.
Right.
And so with the Dhamma, the first time people hear it, it doesn't really sink in.
Yeah.
Um, and that this is the reason why it needs to be repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
And this is part of the value of the Sangha,
Yes.
is
Okay.
to be around others who were talking about it. And so eventually it slowly seeps in. But even then, it has to not just slowly sink in, it's got to be repeatedly moistened
Right.
over and over and over again, because we do get dried out really easily. And so staying around the Sangha, in fact, that you had gotten
Yeah.
into the Dhamma, and then you kind of meandered away, and then it kind of falls away, that it
Hmm.
doesn't stay.
Right.
And and so we have to keep repeating it.
Yes.
And so this is back to that quality of good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, but it has to keep doing it. There is a beginning, and that beginning is repetitive, that we have to do it over and over and over
Mhm.
again.
Right.
The next the next point is that we can find ways that people can communicate with very quickly. that in fact, even though Buddhism is very complex in the sense of all of these Pali words and 15 of that and 20 of those and 12 of this and 16 of that and 5 of these, and it gets really complicated.
Yes.
And that's really hard to put in the beginning.
Mm,
But in fact, that's the way that I had got stuck into it, is that it was also very complicated.
yeah.
And so we can take a very much simpler approach. And the simplest approach of all is to get the entire teachings of the Buddha down to just a few words.
Right.
That in fact, the Buddha himself came up with uh, the term dukkha, dukkha nirodha, which
Yeah.
encompasses the entire teaching. He says that I've
Right.
only taught this one thing,
Yeah.
dukkha, dukkha nirodha. So there's, by the way, a second sutta that occurred after the Buddha died, and that Ananda was out on alms round on Vendabat and got into a conversation with a Brahmin because it was still early. And it wound up being, the question is that, well, what's the difference between the Buddha and all of these other students or all of these arahats? And Ananda said that the only difference is that he discovered it.
Right.
Okay, it's almost like the hunter that would kill a moose and drag it home, and then everybody eats,
Yes.
right? And so, because everybody's eating, everybody's the same, but there was one guy who discovered it.
Right.
And so, in that conversation, Ananda pointed out that really he gets it down to just one word, and he uses the word method.
Yeah.
It's translated as the word path, but there's a
Right.
method to this.
Is it patipada?
Well,
That practice?
maga,
Maga.
uh,
Yeah.
maga, the
Path.
path.
Yes.
But a better word to use is the method.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. An example of that is every time that you come home, you open the door with a method. You get
Yes.
out your key, you put it in the lock, and you turn the lock. Okay. But putting the key in and turning the lock one time is not enough, because you want to keep locking the door. It keeps locking. You close the door when you go out, and so you've got to apply the method every time to get back into the house.
Right.
Every time that you get into your car, you have to go through a method to get the car started. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is also the point is that we have to get a method going. But that method then is the dukkha, dukkha nirodha.
Right.
All right, we have to actually, to open the door, we got to put in the key and turn it. Okay, so this is basically then uh, parts of the Eightfold Noble Path of remembering to look and then to change.
Yes.
Remembering to look and make a change. This is what dukkha, dukkha nirodha is all about, is to look at the dukkha and make a change into not dukkha.
Right.
Also, one of the big problems with the West is that we've been exposed to a really horrendously bad translation of the word dukkha.
Yes. Right. Yes.
That if you walk down the street with pamphlets, handing them out and say, here's a way for you to stop suffering, people are not even going to bother read those. Just say, I'm not suffering, I don't want it,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, and so we have to approach it a little bit differently, because dukkha really doesn't mean suffering, it means dissatisfaction. That we're
Satisfaction.
not just completely, we're not suffering, but we're
Right.
still dissatisfied.
Right.
And so coming out of dissatisfaction into satisfaction is the whole teaching of the Buddha.
Right.
This is exactly why I like the phrase that comes out of songs. whatever phrase it is, there's a lot of music that people are familiar with and that they know what the meaning is, and all they have to do is remember to apply it, to put that key in and turn the knob or turn the lock and open the door. And so one of the frames that I like to use the most is don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
Okay? The
Right.
worry, in fact, is the dukkha. We're dissatisfied and we get worried about stuff, whatever we think about. And basically, when we think about things, though there are feelings that arise.
Right.
An example of that would be anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we can see that we are causing ourselves anxiety by having the kind of thoughts that we have, then we can change those thoughts to eliminate the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could say then that the same thought either could be positive, it could be neutral, or it could be dissatisfying.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the same thought. You can't say that, oh, this thought is always going to be one thing.
Right.
We're going to have different feelings about the same words that we use. Now, there are sometimes we can pretty well guarantee that we're going to have a certain kind of feeling with certain kind of words. But that's really not always the case. For instance, I can think of having revenge for someone and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can have thoughts of having revenge for someone and it's kind of neutral, nothing there. And then I can have those same thoughts and work myself up into a really angry place.
Right. Till
Okay.
eventually that stress could pop out.
hmm So when we go for beginners, what we need to do is to introduce the Dhamma so that they can get uh, it into that positive or happy place. For instance, the song Don't Worry, Be Happy is a happy little song.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we use that, then that gives us that ability. There's a much older song, by the way, in out of the 1930s, resurrected in the 1980s in a movie, Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But the song is "Smile, Darn You, Smile."
Yeah.
Okay, and so these are the kinds of things, these little drops of water that we can give new people who have never had the Dhamma. That's a much better introduction to the Dhamma than the complicated, worse than scientific, let us say, philosophical, religious,
Superstitious.
highfalutin. Go ahead.
Superstitious.
Superstitious, exactly.
Yeah. Saya Sastra.
Magical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Magical. Yeah. Magical.
hmm
Yes. Yeah.
Um, that
Interesting.
that in fact, there's really. Let's use an example of that. The word God.
Yes.
Almost always the word God is seen in a particular context. In many points, in fact, that when people use the word God, they assume everybody has the same definition of the word God.
Right. Yeah.
And that often you could then say, well, God doesn't exist. Well, it depends upon how you define the word.
Right.
If you define God as a he, if you define God as, let us say, for many, many centuries, uh, the, because of the Greek influence, because of Paul going to all of the Greek influenced places in what is now called Turkey,
Mm-hmm.
Ephesus, and many of those places, God got a Zeus kind of appearance
Yeah.
with the guy with a lightning bolt that he was throwing with a great big beard. okay, a personality or a personification.
Hmm.
And really, what we're talking about when we would use the word God would be that we are immersed in it.
Yeah.
It is our environment. If we were
Right.
fish, then it would be the ocean. If we were a bird on the wing, then it's the air, the atmosphere.
Right. Nature.
Whatever our environment is, if we will refocus the word God into our environment, our
Yeah.
you could use the word world, but the word world also has a lot of complications to it.
Right.
Um, and so when things happen that we don't understand, we can go ahead and use words that people commonly understand, but we're making a small change to it.
Okay.
All right. Like, another example would be the devil or
Yeah.
evil.
Right.
Okay. Most of our Western culture has the quality or the concept that the devil or evil is outside,
Yes. Right.
that it's part of the environment.
That it's possible to cast it out.
Yeah, that it's possible to cast it out, but you don't have to cast it out into the environment. That basically it's the fact that all of this stuff is within one's mind.
Yeah. One
What
phrase
we
I
think,
heard years ago was all the devils and all of the gods are inside of us.
hmm specifically the way that we think,
Yeah.
that evil is because we don't like something.
Mm. Yes. Right.
Okay, and
And we
instead of
start to
seeing
rally.
right, then instead of seeing the evil as my attitude, we
Mm.
see evil as that which we don't like. Okay, I don't like that, therefore it is evil, rather
Right.
than recognizing that the evil is that I don't like it.
Right. And that we did that. That arises
Hmm.
within us. Yeah. That
Hmm.
when we think about it, when we stop trying to divide minds, when we just think about mind, mind does that.
The mind
That's
does
what
that.
it learned how
The
to do.
mind creates God.
Right. Yes.
The
Yeah.
mind
Right.
creates evil.
Mm-hmm.
And that in fact this duality that we have, that comes, the Buddha talks about it in the sense of this is Vedana, this is the feelings. We like stuff, we don't like it. And
Right.
if we are wise to that, if we recognize that we don't like something, then we can keep that at the level of, oh, I don't like it, or this is something that's within the mind.
This is the personality is a mental object.
Hmm.
It's a sankhara.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are two different kind of big mistakes that can happen when we are ignorant of the way that we feel. One of those ways of being ignorant about the way that we feel is that if I like it, then I want to like it a lot. I want it close. I
Yeah.
want to own it. I want to bring it close and keep it close.
Agreed.
So part of the ignorance is that if I like it, I'll like it forever.
Right.
Now, divorce is a good example of why that's not the case.
Yes. Right. Hmm.
That if the world is at war, it'll be at war forever. If we're at peace, it'll be peace forever.
Right.
And so that's what we want to say is if I like something, if I like that girl, I want to get close to her and keep her close.
Yes.
The next part of that is that I own it, it's mine.
Right.
But that whole sequence of events is based upon one kind of ignorance. There's another kind of ignorance, and that is that if I like it, it must be good. And if I don't like it, it must be bad. We
Yes.
give our feelings away to the object.
Right.
I like it, therefore it makes me feel good,
Right.
rather than just recognizing that the liking is something that happens on the inside.
Yes. And it has an
I,
intentionality to it.
hmm?
It's intentional.
Most of the time it's intentional, but even the intentionality is ignorant
Yes.
because we still place it on the outside.
Right.
That in fact, there is a passage in the Bible in Genesis about Adam and Eve. It's probably one of the most famous stories there. And one of the important points of it is that the Christians go off on they disobeyed God.
Right.
Well, God didn't make the commandment. Then the Christians get all hung up about it is that, well, why did God put that tree in the garden?
Hmm.
Okay, without understanding that it's actually a metaphor. The
Hmm.
tree wasn't in the garden. The tree was the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're talking about is that humans ignorantly want it to be a tree in the garden, to where in fact it's our own liking and not liking that we've ignorantly gone to, that if I like it, it must be good, and if I don't like it, it must be bad.
Yeah. One of the other things I hear in that story is the idea that the tree is a path to a fruit, and that that fruit is the judgment of good and evil. And when we eat from that fruit and follow that path, we die that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. That
Yep.
our paradise is destroyed through our own judgments.
As soon as we eat that fruit.
We destroy it. Okay, so how then can we teach this to the beginning students?
That is the part that
That
gets me because it's such a big perspective shift sometimes. I wonder how to talk from, this is what I was talking about, like you said, landing. I wonder how to talk from a place that is not so far out. It feels so far out sometimes. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
yes, it does. It feels far out, especially when you're trying to talk to somebody who they seem to be very far away from the actual teachings,
Yeah.
because of most religions, they see it on the outside. They don't
Right.
recognize that God is all over the place. I mean, he's in the bowels. In fact, using the word he is
Yeah.
part of the problem, because that
Yeah.
puts it back into personification.
Yeah.
They, they,
Anthropomorphization
we
of.
personify God. We
Mhm.
make whatever is happening as a personality that is taking a deliberate action that's causing us pain.
Right. Yeah.
And so, why did God put a tree in the paradise and then forbid people to eat it,
Right.
the fruit of it? All right, not recognizing that Adam and Eve themselves created through their ignorance
Yeah.
their
Right.
feelings,
Yep.
and so it's our
Ignorance of the
feelings.
way things are.
hmm So
Yeah.
we can approach it then in the sense of helping people to understand that they've got a choice, that they can either feel good intentionally or feel bad because they're in the habit of feeling bad,
Right.
because no one would make the intentional decision to feel bad. We make that ignorantly. An
Yeah.
example of that is a pity party, when you've heard, obviously have heard, that misery loves company.
Of course. Yeah.
And so anybody who is miserable will take steps to help somebody else to feel miserable along with them,
Mm-hmm.
because misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we are wise and watchful and not ignorant, we're not going to join a pity party.
Mm-mm.
We're not going to feel bad because somebody else feels bad. That we always join the pity party out of ignorance. That we It's almost like, you've heard a phrase about music, that it's toe tapping.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know why that? What is that people like the music, and so they fall into the rhythm with it.
start
All
keeping
right.
time.
We fall in line, we fall in rhythm with things, and we
Yeah.
do it automatically. We're not wise to what we're doing. It's all
Right.
done in ignorance. And so, this is why the sati, to waking up and taking a look, will take us out of ignorance. We can start watching what we're doing. And so, this is the kind of language that we want to use with beginners, is that they've got a choice if they know that they've got a choice. If they
Yeah.
don't know they've got a choice, then they have no choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If they don't know that they've got a choice, they have no choice.
And is this why the Buddha would talk about generosity often when he was opening up for crowds?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a good introduction to the Dhamma. Um, is to talk about things that make people feel good.
Right.
Getting a freebie. We always like to have a freebie.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
example of that would be a smorgasbord or a buffet where you can get all you want to eat, and it's especially good if somebody else paid for it.
Yeah. Okay.
That we always like to get something for free
Yes, right.
without recognizing it is that what that means is that it's easy. When people
Yeah.
begin to understand that the Dhamma is easy to get, that it's
Right.
actually free. The teaching of the Buddha is free enough and easy enough, but the way that it's often approached is that it's very complicated.
Yeah. It's super complicated. I even hear of things like empowerments, other
Mm-hmm.
such things like this. People believe they have to be empowered in order to perform certain practices. Another word I've always liked for empowerment was encouragement, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how well the West would adopt to being encouraged instead of empowered. We love the idea of having power.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate because it seems much nicer when good friends encourage each other to practice rather than, I have to give this to you. So I think words like that are already present in a lot of Western Buddhist vocabulary too when we think about
Mm-hmm.
empowerment, transmissions, and other such things like that. So it's much better to think about how to get someone to see the choice that's available for them now.
Well, if we can keep the language very simple,
Yeah.
keeping the language very simple in the sense of helping people to recognize that if they are watching what's going on, if they can see, then they can see choices that they had. And if they don't see, then they don't have any choice.
Right.
So often people get worried and they don't even know that they're worried.
Right.
And so helping them say by don't worry, be
Yeah.
happy.
Mm-hmm. Presents the
And
whole
they
thing.
say, well, I'm not worried.
Right.
And then you can say, well, be happy.
Yes. Okay.
Because that'll
Right.
help them to understand that, yeah, well, they were kind of worried.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so
Perfect.
we can come out of that worry into being happy. It's that easy.
Yeah.
But we're still resistant to it because we've gotten kind of all dried out. We're so
Right.
stuck in the worry that we don't even know that we're in the worry. We're stuck in anxiety. We don't even know that we're in the anxiety. That in fact, thoughts that we have that make us worried could be thoughts that we were having, and we could be happy with those
Yeah.
thoughts. Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
going to go get this done, and I'm going to go get that done, and everything is good. But if we have anxiety with it, then it has the flavor, oh, I've got to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
That we do things because we're told to do them rather than doing things because they're fun.
Yeah. Right.
And so taking the pressure off of ourselves, which is the worry itself. Worry is kind of a pressure.
Is it very much
If we
impressive?
take the pressure off, we can get a whole lot more done. We can get
Yeah.
it done easily.
Yeah. It just kind of comes up. It's really nice.
Okay. An example of that is that it's really easy to carry an empty suitcase around. But if it's loaded down with books and shoes and notepads or worse,
Yeah.
laptops,
Right.
then it's a very heavy thing. Now, here's
Yeah.
the important point, though, is that if your suitcase is empty, why even bother carrying it around?
Need it. Leave it at home. Right. Because that's where those things that we're talking about live, is between. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Where they live, the things that cause us so much trouble, that tend
Mm-hmm.
to bubble over. They live between seeing something and the eye.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And it causes anxiety. It causes bodily sensations that are uncomfortable. But
Mm,
oftentimes people don't even know it.
right. Yes.
Now,
Right.
there's various different kinds of anxiety. Let us say from ignorant to it, that it's so small that we don't even know that it's there,
Right.
all the way up to full panic attack,
Right. Okay.
high anxiety. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Now, almost always anxiety is based in fear,
Right.
and it also has bodily components in the sense of the body chemistry changes when their body has anxiety.
Absolutely.
And that anxiety is often associated with adrenaline,
Mm-hmm.
which is the chemical that is used for fight or flight. That's
Yeah.
generally what we have when there's a dangerous situation. We have two options. One is to fight it, and the other one is to flee it.
Right.
Almost always, it is better to fly than it is to fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good example of that would be an argument.
Yes.
It's just to
Right.
leave the argument rather than
Mm-hmm.
continue on fighting with the argument.
Right.
But we have to be able to see that.
Right.
We have to be able to see it so that we have a choice consciously, because if we don't see it, then that fight or flight will happen automatically.
Yes. Right.
And if we can
It's a
see
pretty.
that we're there because of fear, and that the fear that we have is not appropriate.
Right.
It's not appropriate because things are really not as bad as we thought.
No. That's where the teaching of the appropriate attention comes in, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Uniso manisakara. If we pay attention to this, this arises. If we pay attention to that, it goes away.
Mm-hmm. And so if we can pay attention to the fact that these kind of thoughts make us feel uptight, anxious, having anxiety, even if it's a little bit,
Yeah.
then we can change those thoughts. This is part of why the practices that we call meditation is so valuable, is if the student is sitting there and he becomes aware of this little anxiety and recognize that he has power over that with
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
If he changes what he's thinking, it will change that anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're out in the world having to deal with stuff, it's the same thing.
Right.
In other words, if we can see what's going on, we have a choice. And
Right.
if we can't see what's going on, we have no choice.
Yes.
This is the easy way then to teach the Dhamma.
Right.
Is that we have the choice of either being dissatisfied or satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
That's our choice. And if we wake up, we can see that choice, then we can make a wise choice. There's nothing much more to the Dhamma than just that.
Right. It seems like when you first started, I do remember that. I remember thinking when I first started, and especially when I first talked to you, because you were the first one that was able to talk to me about the Dhamma in a way that I was like, oh, it's like this. And so I remember thinking beforehand, no way, nothing with what do you want to call it, salvific potential can be so simple. But then as you practice, you realize the only thing that can have salvific potential is something that simple. You know, and I hear it when the Buddha talks about the regularity of the Dhamma is that's it. You know, any living being, this is the path.
But it's always brand new in the brand new moment.
Yes.
So we have to start being consistent. We have to practice. That it's hard to get it in, just like it's hard to get people to understand that this is so simple.
Right.
Because everything about everything else, I mean, engineering is so complicated.
Right.
Christianity is so complicated.
Right.
Mathematics is so complicated.
Just the
And
household
this is
budget
something very
is so
simple.
complicated. Yeah. So now we've got to figure out how to talk in a different way too, huh? That's so cool. It just goes like this over and over. Is so amazing to watch. It's just like the fire just eats it up. I love to watch it happen like that because it's eating up the way to talk. And that's so beautiful. It just changes it up.
So there are many, many different ways that the entire teaching of the Buddha can be said in a one-liner.
Yeah. Okay.
Over time, I've recognized quite a few of them. One of them is with the Goenka statement, when the mind wanders away from the breath, never mind, start again. All right. Now, in that never mind, start again has the quality of being able to see.
Right.
But almost always when the beginner student sees something, he automatically feels bad because of rules. Oh, I'm supposed to watch the breath, and here I am not watching the breath. I'm terrible. I'm bad. My mind is out of gear. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so they have all of these negative thoughts because of their judgments. So basically, we need to see then that we judge things. We're critical. We're critical of ourselves. And that coming out of the criticism into the nurturing.
Right.
Like, never mind, start again is a very nurturing thing to say.
It is.
All right.
Yeah. Supportive.
And it's the entire teaching of the Buddha. Never mind, start again, which is exactly, don't worry, be happy. We've got a choice here.
Yeah.
The one that I found recently, a couple of years ago, I say the entire teachings of the Buddha is on the back of a shampoo bottle. Every shampoo bottle that's ever been sold at 7-Eleven or at the grocery store has the entire teachings of the Buddha on it. And people get, what? And I say, yes, because on the bottle it has rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do, is to rinse out the mind and then repeat that. Rinse and repeat. Take those unwholesome thoughts out of the mind and put some wholesome thoughts in. What are the unwholesome thoughts? That which gives us anxiety, that which gives us worry, that which causes us to be judgmental and see things as black or white, good or bad.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat. Let's take that stuff out of the mind.
One of the things that does is it makes it so we can't see the potentials that exist because we're so focused on what we think is so fixed.
Well, we often get involved with what the potential is rather than the actual.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That the potential
makes a lot of sense. Okay.
The potential is almost always compared with the actual.
Right.
So the actual winds up being the bad, and the potential is the good.
Yeah.
So if we would stop thinking about the future and seeing how things ought to be, that allows us to see the actual as paradise, that we actually are in paradise. Everything's already okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Always has been. That's an amazing thing to realize. It gives you a lot of confidence about the next moment to recognize that everything's okay.
Yeah, if we can handle this one, we can handle the next
we
one.
can handle the next one. Probably done it before. Probably do it again.
Mm-hmm. And so that's another approach is that what is all we really have.
Yeah.
That the potential is a made up thing. It's a concept.
Right.
We conceptualize.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can conceptualize in the sense of, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do that.
Right.
But the other side of it is that, wow, now that I know about that, I hate what's going on now. Things are terrible right now. I've got to go get that potential because the actual's not good enough.
Right.
And so these are all ways that we can work with very new beginners so that they can get the whole teaching of the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be done fairly easily. That it does not have to be complicated, because complications take work. Everybody wants to have a simple. We want it to be free. We do want a giveaway.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
That here's the point about the lottery is that people play the lottery because they get a good feeling out of winning, even if it's a little one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they won $5.
Mm-hmm.
They don't recognize that they probably put more money in than they get out of it. But we do get that hit of joy when we get a freebie, when we get something for nothing.
Absolutely. And we see this even when we start watching little babies, huh? Because they'll make a noise and then they'll get really happy they made a noise. They'll make a noise. They'll get really happy they made the same noise. We start plugging it away then.
Mm-hmm. And so we're looking for getting something for nothing so that we can get the joy out of that, not recognizing that actually everything is free. All the best things in life are free.
Right.
They happen.
Yeah.
The air is here. Take a breath.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, man.
And so everything winds up being very simple, and that makes it, let us say, useful, valuable, and worthwhile in the minds of people, because we're looking for something easy, something free. And the Buddha Dhamma is free.
Mm-hmm.
It's free this moment, it's free next moment. The question is whether you remember that you've got a choice or not.
Yeah, right. Because that's really sati, is remembering the teaching in each moment.
Mm-hmm. Remembering that you've got a choice.
Yeah, right.
Look at what you're doing and make a change, because you've got a choice every minute.
Right.
So for the beginning meditator, when they're sitting there and they actually begin to experience that they've got anxiety, that they carry it around most of the time and they don't even know that it's there, but when they sit down in meditation, the anxiety will manifest itself. Not that the anxiety is greater, but that there's nothing happened to cause the anxiety that they can see. And so they recognize the anxiety is there without recognizing actually that they... Go ahead.
Seclusion.
Pardon?
Seclusion. If you sit in seclusion, you notice this ain't from anybody else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
That
they
you
get
can't
to see
blame
it
the
again.
outside world. That evil is not out there.
Meditation retreats can be troublesome, huh? Because people will start picking on people for, this is because they sneezed, or this is because that person their aura is off, or something silly. But if they go in and they sit at the root of a tree and there ain't a darn being around them, there's no chance for that to happen that way. For that concoction. Okay.
And
I see that.
And then they can see this anxiety,
Yeah.
and they don't know where it comes from, without recognizing, as the Buddha said, that the mind is fast.
Yeah.
That you can have the flash of an image, and then create the anxiety, and then we
That's
see
the
the anxiety and we don't recognize that it's because we had a thought. That thought may
Yeah.
have been a really quick, short one,
Uh-huh.
but what we can do now, actually, after we see the anxiety, we can say, wait a minute, there's no reason to feel anxiety. Everything is already okay. We take a deep breath, and that anxiety can be dealt with in 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah.
There,
We
it's
just have
gone. There's nothing to it. Why? Because we've made a change in the way that we're thinking.
right. Right.
All right. So let's use an innocuous thing.
Okay.
Uh, uh, some sportsman, um, uh, Johnson, I think that there's guys named Johnson who are
I'm sure there must be, right?
okay, and we can say he is a good football player.
Mm-hmm.
We can say he is a good football player and feel really good about that because we
Right.
like him. We
Mm-hmm.
can say he is a good football player and feel neutral because we don't think about sports at all. We don't care about it. Or we
Right.
can say he is a good football player and fall into deep anxiety.
right.
And so it's not that surface level thought, but
right.
it's the underlying tendencies that go with that.
yes.
All
Oh,
right, it's the underlying stories or the underlying rules that the Buddha talks about, our attachment
yeah.
to how things should be. That's our judgments.
Right.
Okay, so if our underlying rule is that I like sports and I like that team, then when we say he is a good football player, we'll feel good. But if we have no underlying tendencies at all about it, then we say he's a good football player doesn't mean anything at all.
Right.
But
It's
if we
the
have the underlying tendency that, in the sense of, I should be a good football player too, and I'm not. So when we say that to ourselves, he's a good football player, the anxiety will arise.
yes, it will. Right. Because
And
we
so
think at
it's
that point that there's a
and so we have to be careful when we say that our thoughts cause anxiety
right.
because it's not really the thought itself, it's the underlying rules that we made about it
Yeah.
that will color the thoughts that we have.
Right. Because that's the holding.
Yeah, we hold on to that.
Yeah.
That's the clinging to the past
Right.
about how things should be.
Yeah. Could it
And that
also
when
cling
we,
to imagine future?
pardon?
Could it also be clinging to imagined future, which really is
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
past again, right?
yeah, the future is always the past.
Right, because it's just a projection forward of things that we think happened in the past, when really every time we recall them, we
Hmm.
make them back up anyways.
Right. Here's a
Yeah.
good example of that Einstein came up with the general theory of relativity and time and space being interconnected
Right.
because he was worried about gravity because Newton's law of gravity didn't work.
Right.
Einstein would have never come up with his ideas about general theory of relativity and a
Yeah.
special theory of relativity if he had already not had a problem from Newton.
Right. And the problem from Newton made it so that Einstein posited self on a bunch of metaphysical phenomena.
Hmm. And
Uh-huh.
so now all of the astrophysicists, the James Webb is starting to prove that
Yep.
all of the physicist ideas about the Big Bang theory and a lot of the stuff that Einstein had come up with was
Yeah.
wrong.
Right.
And the reason for it is because now the James Webb telescope is showing them things that they could not see before, and yet modern astrophysics is still clinging to the past. They don't just look, oh, this is what it is now.
Right.
They have to take that and try to fit it in or
It
pack it in to
came
their
before.
past.
Yeah, with the Silabata Paramasa.
Now, how can we teach that to the brand new student? that it's the past, it's the way that the rules, the laws, the way that it should be.
Right.
That things are always brand new.
Yeah. We have to look.
If we observe, if we look, if we can see what's going on now, we can make decisions about what's going on now,
Yeah.
including that anxiety that rose, let us say, because somebody said, or we heard, or we said to ourselves, he's a good football player, and now we feel bad.
Right.
What can we do? We can say, well, never mind, I don't have to care about football right now because there's no football here. There's no football on the porch here. Why should I be thinking about football? That's the footballs that I have in my mind are all old footballs. They come from the past.
Right.
Let me think about what's happening here now.
Yeah, because that's the
And
great
so
trick
that's
of the mind, huh?
Pardon?
That's one of the big tricks the mind has going, is that it makes it so that it feels like everything everyone's doing everywhere else is more important than what I'm doing right here and right now. Whether it's
Well,
a football player and
that's one kind of attitude. Other people have the attitude of whatever is happening out there is not nearly as important as what I am thinking about.
true. Right. Which feeds it up anyways, huh? Does the same thing.
And then there's the other possibility is we're not giving any thought about what's going on out there.
Just completely blanked out
Yeah,
about it.
and so we're now back into that middle position.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And so this is where we can see, in fact, possibly the very best way to introduce the teaching of the Buddha is the way that he introduced it.
Okay.
In his very first sermon, the Dhammacakkappavanta Sutta is widely known and respected to be the very first sermon, where he talks about the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths. He introduces that with the middle path.
Right.
Always the middle path.
Right.
All right. Where is the middle path? Well, the middle path is right now between the past and the future.
Yeah.
Okay. That the middle path is between I like it and I got to have it versus I hate it and got to kill it.
Yeah.
All right. You can see that with the Democrats and the Republicans. All right. And that people who are neutral then don't bother to vote. And so the Democrats, they want you to like something and hate something else. And the Republicans reverse that so that you like this and hate that. So they always want you to go to the extremes so that they can control you.
Yeah. Right.
But if you stay in the middle, then they have no much influence. And so this is a way of talking about it is that we've always got a choice, and the choice is finding the sweet spot in the middle.
Right.
That we don't have to go to the extreme.
Right.
And so taking these basic things like don't worry, be happy is a way of coming to the middle.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Because if we worry about something that is good and we want it, then we're worried because we got to get it because the future is better than the present.
Right.
Or the potential is better than the actual.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
Or we can go to the other side and worry about something in the other direction. But always coming back to that sweet spot in the middle where everything is hunky-dory, everything is fine. And so we can talk about the teaching of the Buddha and get much of it done within 10 minutes.
2 words, huh? Yeah. I think
However, it doesn't sink in.
Right.
In 10 minutes.
Right. Not for everyone, huh? Is that
well,
why
nobody's going to get anything in 10 minutes.
Oh, I thought Kondana, when we talk about that sermon, Kondana understood.
Yes, but he had been spending his whole life with the
Doing
Buddha.
A lot of
He
practices,
traveled around with him.
Right.
He was there all through that.
Yeah.
And so Khandana was actually able to get that point about the middle path,
Yeah.
because that's the introduction to the Four Noble Truths, is that middle path, because he and the Buddha had been off into the extremes.
Right.
The extremes of the jhanas and going to those high jhana states, as well as the extremes of self-flagellation, taking the hard way, starving himself, doing barefoot everywhere,
Right.
etc., like that. And so the Buddha allowed people to have footwear, but it was always in the middle. That there's
Yeah.
only a certain time of day that you walk barefoot, and that is when going out on Bendabat. But the rest of the day, it's okay to wear shoes. Another kind of middle path would be eating once a day. You know, people talk about how wonderful fasting is. Well, all we need to do is to practice fasting once a day.
Right.
But we can practice that every day. That one of the great benefits of practicing eating one meal a day is that we can deal with hunger to the point that we're not hungry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That in fact, this is one of the things that Cathal is dealing with at the Wat. He's new to the Wat, new to eating once a day, and it's in the suttas to where the Buddha allowed the monks to take the food with them. If they have, let us say, a bowl of food, they can eat most of it and then take some back with them, so when they're hungry, they can have a little.
Mm.
Because they're dealing with it in the sense of only when one is hungry. And
Yeah.
pretty soon they can learn to deal with the hunger by not having any hunger. They're not hungry. They don't get
Right.
hungry in the day, but if you do get hungry, go ahead and eat. But we only eat once a day if you're not ever hungry.
Yeah. Hmm.
If you're not ever hungry, you still need to eat, but we
Right.
don't have to go on a 30-day fast. I
Right.
think in my life I've done 2 7-day fasts and a 30-day fast, but I don't see any value in it anymore.
Yeah.
That they were talking about it, but fasting throughout the day and eating one meal a day, that's the middle path.
Right.
And so learning to deal with everything in the middle pathway is will take us out of the dukkha into the dukkha nirodha, because the dukkha is always at one extreme or the other. It's
Right.
either good and I want it, or it's bad and I got to get rid of it. Always based on ignorance. And so waking up and recognizing you've got a choice, and the best choice is always to come back to the middle position. Everything's okay, everything's fine.
Right.
And that's the way of dealing with anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Easy to do.
Yeah. You just got to practice it. Mm-hmm.
Every new moment is a new moment, and it's a new opportunity to wake up, take a look, and to make a new choice.
Okay.
Every minute is a different minute. To wake up, take a look.
Make a choice. Mm-hmm.
And so this is the way to teach the Dhamma to new students,
Okay. I like that.
is starting with the concept of the middle path, and that everything is easy, and that we have to wake up to what we're doing so that we can see that we've got choices.
Yes.
And always the choice is going to be take the easy way out, take the middle
Right.
path,
Let go.
let go.
Yeah. That's a very beautiful thing.
Every moment we have a choice. Are we going to unlock that door to happiness, or are we going to stand out on the porch stamping our feet and or long to get in there? Okay.
Right.
It's easy enough. Just put the key in and turn the lock, and the
Yes, sir.
door opens.
Absolutely. Hmm. Very amazing stuff. I like that a lot. I will keep that in mind and make sure to practice that. Talking about
Well, to finish this off now, we can see then that yes, that's our teaching for the beginner, but what about the middle? And the
Okay.
answer to that is it's the same thing. It's
Right.
exactly the same thing.
Right.
And then in the end, what that means is that someone's gotten very good at watching what's going on. He remembers to wake up often.
Yeah. Right.
He don't get stuck in it. And if he does get stuck in it, he get right back out of it
Mm-hmm.
without having a bunch of rules, thou shalt not get stuck in it. Because if you have a rule, thou shalt not get stuck in it, then when you're stuck in it, you get even stucker.
Yep. It's like an extra glue.
Mm-hmm. Um, as I've mentioned several times in the past, that I spent my teenage years in a swamp,
Mhm.
in a peaty swamp. And in the swamp is quicksand, and everybody who lives in those kind of neighborhoods know is how easy it is to get stuck out of quicksand. It's very easy to do that, but not by trying to lift a leg out. Because if you lift one leg out, you're lifting it by pushing the other leg deeper into it. You can't get out of quicksand that way. How do you
Okay.
get out of quicksand? You lay down on your back.
Gotcha.
If you lay down on your back, then all of the quicksand, you're spreading out the weight. But
Right.
if you're standing in it and you try to pull one foot out, the other leg gets stuck deeper. And so now
Ooh.
you try to pull it out, and so you put the leg that you did get up back down so that you can get the one. And so that's why people will struggle
Yeah.
and get stuck in quicksand to the point that they can get buried in it. But if you
Right.
merely lay down on your back, then you spread all the weight out, and then it's easy to get your legs out
Yeah.
because you're using all of that mass on under the back rather than just a
Yeah.
little bit under the foot. So it's a matter of physics. And it's
Right.
very easy to get oneself out of the quicksand. You basically swim your way out of it.
Yeah.
You do the backstroke, and that'll get you out of the quicksand.
Right on. You have to know that. Right?
But that's the whole point of the
Yeah.
Dhamma. You have to know that you have to stop struggling and just lay down.
Yes, I like it. I get it. Perfect. Thank you, Dhammarato. I appreciate
Because
that.
pushing the left leg down in order to get the right leg up, that's the duality.
Right.
And in order, and then you reverse that, and that's why people get stuck in the mud, is because of that. And
Yeah.
if we would just lay down, everything's all right.
See how it
Instead of
is.
trying to fix things, we don't
Mhm.
need to fix it. What we need to do is to make a change about the way that we feel about it. And we can talk ourselves into feeling good by making sure that it doesn't matter. It's not important. Yeah, just
Right.
lay down.
Yep. Lay down. Spread out the weight.
Yeah, just lay down and spread out the weight, and everything gets really easy.
Mm-hmm.
And we
That's
do that in the beginning, we do that in the middle, and we do that in the end. And so it's good in the beginning, it's good in the middle, and it's good in the end.
That's my
But the
favorite.
way that Buddhism is taught is really complicated in the beginning. It's really hard work in the middle, and nobody's ever seen the end to it.
Yeah.
But if
Yes,
you can
sir.
teach the Dhamma so that it's very easy in the beginning,
Yeah.
taking the middle path, laying down, just enjoying yourself, then it gets easy in the middle because you're getting fairly good at it and you can see the depths of how this teaching actually works. And then
Right.
it's really good in the end because now you're watching.
Yes. What a great time. How beautiful. Yeah, that was a very great talk. Thank you so much, Dhammarato. I appreciate that talk immensely. It's very helpful. I love
Right.
all
Not
the.
only is it helpful for you, but then when you get around starting to teach the Dhamma to others, you recognize, oh, there's a very easy way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yep.
recognize that there's a middle path in there, an easy way out to avoid the extremes. And we can do that if we can wake up and recognize we've got that choice.
Yes, sir. How nice. I love that.
So why don't we finish this call now? I think that we've really gotten this one.
I think so too. Thank you, Dhammarato. This is a good one.
Excellent.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Well, we'll see you later. And thanks so much for your participation on the Skype. You're very good, stable force. I really like the stuff that you're doing there.
I appreciate that, Dhammarato. I'll make sure to keep it up. And I'll go on the website and fill out those fields too.
All right, great. Send some messages. Say hello to the folks. Make some comments. That kind of stuff. Let's get this system active.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Very good. All
All
right. Then.
right.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.